Let's do this. Hello and welcome to episode number 15 of 11FS Spotlight. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and brightest in tech and financial services to try and understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think the future of the industry is going to look like. Today's show is brought to you by MyTech, digital identity verification trusted the world over, secure for secure and more high-value customers while reducing risks and the costs. You can reduce them all with MyTech, a global leader and enterprise partner in identity verification technology. Just before we get started as well, I also wanted to remind you about MLB. No, not MLK, although that's pretty important too. MLB is just another hard to remember acronym. It stands for Minimum Lovable Brand. The 11FS approach to creating modern, iterative brands to help cut through the noise and create a genuine connection with customers and their culture. Brand is everything in this digital first world, and we want to help you do it right. To learn more about Minimum Lovable Brand and to download our free handbook, head to bit.ly 11FS MLB. That's bit.ly/11FS MLB now. Okay, so joining me today on Spotlight is the one and only John Hope Bryant, who is founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope. We're going to be talking about economic liberation, generational wealth, and of course, what John's getting up to in 2021. John, how's it going? Good to have you back.
My honor to be with you, Simon. And I love the sign behind your head, by the way.
It's a constant reminder. At any time, it could happen to any one of us. So I just gotta keep an eye on that. And with Sam not presenting this one, who's your regular, he just finds that super easy. I find it a lot harder. So shout out to Sam if you're watching. Yeah. So John, how are you doing? What's been keeping you busy, my friend?
Look, we're sitting in a moment in history, my man. History doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that the moment is not in fact historic. And this is we're dealing with the fifth crisis of this country's history. You had the Civil War, and I'm pausing because it could be six crises depending which you count. But the Civil War. You've had the World War. Well, I'm gonna leave that out. Civil rights movement. You've had the 9/11 crisis. If you add World War II and World War III, that's five. Now this will be the sixth, which is a war of COVID. COVID waging war on us, and we're not waging a war back. We don't have a war plan, and that's what I'm about. I've created a new Marshall Plan that I wrote last May for the Milken Institute. Your viewers can download that. It's been adopted and viewed, and now even being considered by the new federal government. We are about operationalizing parts of that, even when the government is thinking about it. There's a lot the private sector can do. 90% of all jobs come from the private sector. Almost all legitimate wealth comes from the private sector. A lot of opportunity comes from the community who watches your podcast and videocast, which is the financial services sector. Some people don't know that Coca-Cola came out of, yes, a couple inventors, but the Coke was actually purchased and grown by a couple bankers. Who knew? That group of bankers created something that was called SunTrust Bank. SunTrust Bank went on to great glory and is now Truist Bank. But in the formula for Coca-Cola sat in the SunTrust vaults for decades, and it was the Coca-Cola stock that really saved SunTrust during the 2009 economic crisis. So all these things, entrepreneurs and bankers are interrelated. They interplay. And we've got to make sure we also now involve in every conversation community. Yeah. I think we're beginning to see, Simon, how reliant we all are on that interplay with community, both good and bad. You ignore the community and you have riots in ballot boxes, riots on the streets, and it appears riots in capitals. Yeah. You empower that community and you've got GDP and growth and democracy and fair play and opportunity. So I am exceedingly hopeful, but I'm exceedingly concerned because you cannot subcontract your democracy.
Indeed.
You've got to lean in and be present and be active. You've got to be a PhD and a PhD too.
PhD. I really enjoyed that, and a PhD is very much again to the private sector and kind of entrepreneurialism. I love that story about Coca-Cola. About just kind of even if the government can't help you, you can get on and do an awful lot yourself. And in the financial sector, there's a lot that we can do, and in fintech, there's a lot that we can do. I think I want to unpack that, but before we do, just remind everybody about Operation Hope and the mission and kind of your journey into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So I'm the founder and chairman and CEO of Operation Hope. It is the largest nonprofit financial inclusion organization in the United States of America. It was founded in 1992, April 29th, well, May 5th, 1992, after the April 29th Rodney King's riots in South Central Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. It started with a dream to make free enterprise work for all of God's children. Of course, Simon, people laughed at me and dismissed the idea and thought it was silly and that I was ridiculous. But first, people will ignore you. Then they will criticize you.
Yep.
And you keep at it. Then they will try to copy you. And then you win. And so Operation Hope has been winning for a little while now. We are in 26 states. We have 165 committed Hope Inside locations. I think we have 158 that are operational right now. We have a Hope in Hand app, which your viewers can download on their phone right now on all platforms. Of course, operationhope.org is our website. And we have 4 million clients. We've directed $3.5 billion to underserved neighborhoods, creating homeowners and entrepreneurs and small business owners and people who are self-reliant. I think most importantly, in the sort of actuarial output-based world that your viewers live in, we've moved credit scores 54 points in 6 months.
Wow.
Right? And 120 points in 24 months. And nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's the one of the previous shows you did with us. You talked about like the impact that has on somebody's life, and it's truly astounding. And there's a wave of fintech apps now that really position themselves as the credit builder app. And there's a lot of apps that are really trying to help people with financial literacy or just get a hold of their money and spend better, make smarter decisions, not take out the wrong debt, but know that the right kind of debt can really serve you if you manage it appropriately. Do you think that there's, like, what are your thoughts on financial literacy, and do you think it is even a civil rights issue to a certain degree?
I think the financial literacy is the civil rights issue of our generation. Mm-hmm. And I didn't say the Black generation or the Latino generation or the, Indian or Asian or white generation. It's because the color of today is green. Mm-hmm. Color of U.S. currency if you're in the United States of America. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's parallel that we're increasingly moving from issues of race and the color line, which is not to say that racism isn't a huge issue. It is.
Of course.
The issue that's driving racism and driving hostilities is the issues of class and poverty, mm-hmm. And the lack of aspiration. And so I think that when you look at the group that stormed the Capitol on January 6th, yes, there were some wealthy amongst them and well-to-do amongst them, because there's always been the plight of the poor is being played by those who should know better and don't. Mm-hmm. That was the 60s, and the White Citizens Council, the business leaders who manipulated poor whites and created it inspired the relaunch of the Ku Klux Klan. But the majority of the folks who stormed the Capitol January 6th were high school educated white men, mm-hmm. who, and by the way, people who are dying fastest in this country, Simon, high school educated white men.
Yeah.
Very little known fact. And that frustration, that lack of aspiration, how do rich people get rich? How do wealthy people stay wealthy? Why am I not successful? Why is the world leaving me behind? Why haven't I had a good job since the mid, or my family had a good job since the mid 1970s when the Industrial Revolution walked away from us?
Yeah.
If you're in the urban inner city, why are we stuck in this rut? Why do we have poverty all around us? Why don't we see jobs and opportunity? So if I can't get it, I'm going to take it, sort of a mentality.
Completely.
So this lack of financial literacy is a lack of really understanding how the system works, the math of the matter. And what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. So to answer your question, yes, I believe financial literacy is one of, I would say but one of the civil rights issues of this generation. I think it should be mandated, just like the right to vote or needing a driver's license. I think you should, if you're living in an economic democracy today, you should understand how the system works so that you can work the system. I think it is a sin to live in a world, in a country where 70% of GDP is consumer spending, where 70% of people are living from paycheck to paycheck, where 64% of people don't have $40 for an unplanned event before COVID, and you got too much month at the end of your money. Can I get an amen? And
Amen. Amen.
Give people the basics of how this system works at a young age, and then tie education into aspiration. My preaching over on that topic, but yeah.
No, I hear you 100%. Like the basics of just compounding, the basics of paying back on time, the right amount of debt, what the credit agencies are looking for, how that's broken, how you can manage your money better. Like it's all out there, and it's been out there for a long time, but it's not available, and it's not accessible, and it's not made clear. I completely agree, and I think those really help build and define one of the many pillars of success. And you mentioned some of these in your book, Up From Nothing, The Untold Story of How We All Succeed. Yeah. Could you tell us about that and the 5 pillars? There it is, right there.
That's my newest book, and then you can't see them, but there's all 5. Maybe you can't see them. It's all 5 books that I've written back there, 3 of which are bestsellers. You want me to deal with the 5 pillars? You want me to deal with a specific focus within that lens?
So I guess, how do we get from like the civil rights issue that is financial literacy, and then how that sort of gets to the 5 pillars for success? What do you think the pivot point from those is?
The pivot point for that is 2020. It was COVID-19. I mean, I'm a spiritual guy, so I would say that coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. That's an Ambassador Andrew Young quote, my mentor. I would say that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. I would say that we've mismanaged this planet on our own and allowed the environment to get to a point where the polar ice caps are actually melting in our lifetime. I mean, people are used to hearing, oh, by 2090, something bad's going to happen, or by 2152, something bad's going to happen. And people, oh, we have enough time to fix that. But, you're hearing now that by 2025, like, by 2028, this is that, and then that's going to happen with regard to our physical environment. That's on our watch, right?
It's like humanity as a species, it's the frog that's boiling itself, and it's turning the temperature up on itself. And it's kind of crazy that we kind of insist on doing that. And it's an awareness thing, I guess.
Well, no, it's an action thing. It's an awareness thing. It's, look, people watching this program, they're smart. Like, it's more than about an awareness thing. I mean, they know when they're out of money. They know to pay their mortgage. They know when the school fees are due.
You're right.
Somehow we find a way to eat every day.
Yeah,
that's more than awareness, Simon. That's action. Let me go.
That's the truth.
And let me make sure I've got enough money to pay for the food. Let me make sure I pay my rent every month. So we need to be more than aware. We need to take action. And as I said earlier, you cannot subcontract your democracy, our democracy. So you got this environmental sustainability issue that's now upon us. You have a 400-year-old social justice reckoning of Black America. That's a show all by itself. You've got a economic crisis that rivals the Great Depression with regard to unemployment in particular. You've got a health crisis, COVID-19, that's the worst thing since the Spanish flu.
Mm-hmm.
The equivalent of 9/11 victims every day. You've got, this is what makes this American country so dang on great. Is this one of those things should depress you? And we're just, we're like, okay, what?
Yeah, keep coming.
Come on, what next? And I probably missed something. And you've got a fundamental breakdown in the leadership, the public service leadership at the federal government, state, and local level, with people confused about whether their service is about we, about me.
Yeah. Something in the definition of the word service getting broken there. Like it's
exactly right. But I on that last point, I tell people, because of racism and slavery, African Americans are probably, as a majority of groups, as long as we're brilliant, we're genius, all that, but we're probably 70% clinically undiagnosed depressed because of all that's happened to us in this country, understandably so. But we vote in mass, Simon, twice, basically, when we're proud and when we're pissed. And when on the first election of Obama, we were super proud. And last year, we were super pissed. We felt like somebody had given us a middle finger with both fingers, and we were tired of it. And if you look at all the swing states, they were basically black blocks of vote that flipped, certainly here in Georgia. And did it twice here in Georgia. And came back and did it for the special election. And it shows the power of people when you energize them. They can take their country back, take their lives back, and so on and so forth. So I'm seeing a reason for hope because we're fighting with each other, so to speak. But for the most part, we're fighting for the best of our country. We're fighting within the rules, other than people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. We're protesting, most people, legally and ethically and honestly. Most people are not rioting. You think about this, Simon. You have a city like LA, 6 million people, 10,000 police officers. That's not public safety if something bad goes down.
No.
The only reason that LA works with 10,000 police officers, with a sidearm, with 2 backup clips and two sets of handcuffs, is because people believe in hope.
Yeah.
People believe opportunity. Play by the rules, do the right thing, keep your nose clean, stop at red lights, or respectful to your elders.
And you will get ahead in life. And you will go.
Reasonable shot of success or failure in your own merit. Okay. Yeah. And when that breaks down, there's not enough police. When the faith and the hope in that promise breaks down, there's not enough police or military to save you or anybody else anywhere in the world. And that's one of the magics of America. That's why I said in this book, Up From Nothing, we're not a country, we're an idea.
Yeah.
And we can make it whatever we want.
100%. I guess the next question was going to be what motivates the work you do, but I think that comes across loud and clear. There is a question that's coming from our audience, and audience, do keep asking them. I mean, I learn so much every time I speak to you, John, so thank you for doing this. But Dave Cunningham asks, how do you see the rise of buy now, pay later offerings such as Klarna, like Affirm, your Afterpays, when we need to raise credit scores? What are your thoughts on that type of thing?
By the way, I want to commend my friend who's the founder of Affirm, who's literally a genius.
Max Levchin.
Yeah. Look, if people are financially literate, these things are fantastic.
Yeah. If I'm buying a Peloton and I can buy it at 0% over 4 months, hey, that's just convenient.
Yes, and I have 2 Pelotons downstairs, and I didn't have to, but I just wanted to see how the product worked. So I used Affirm to buy both of them. It was very efficient and very elegant, but I'm also financially literate, and I paid it early. But if you are financially illiterate and you could, I was stunned 2 Christmases ago. I was walking through an airport and almost passed out when I saw on my phone that you could buy, it was a Super Bowl ticket for a football game, and you could buy, it was just a regular game, but it was like $3,000 seat for some strange reason, prime seat. And I'm like, how does a middle class person making $60,000 a year afford or even want to buy, rent, use for 3 hours a seat in a stadium for a football game for $3,000? My wife Shatra said, John, look at the app. It says push here to finance the football ticket. And I said, no, you can't. This can't be right. Yes, instant financing of football tickets, baseball tickets,
Oh,
tickets. You can go to you used to be able to go to a Hertz rental car, or we pick on Hertz, a rental car company, and finance it, a rental car rental. I mean, when you start getting to this point, I mean, this is how there was a show called Pimp Your Ride. This is Pimp Your Life. I mean,
yeah.
at this point, so at that point, it's you have people who are technically actually bankrupt.
Yeah, and if I'm spending 5% of my net income after tax on one football ticket, and I'm then also compounding interest on that, like I'm losing not just the amount of income that I would have spent from the frivolous purchase. It's almost like if you imagine trying to go to an ATM and draw out the $3,000 for that ticket, would you do it? But if somebody gives you a button to push, and then also it's going to compound and get you on the long tail, then suddenly that seems like a no-brainer. And there is something like a responsibility to finance there in terms of like just don't do that, people. And I want to take that to a new initiative.
It's not something like a responsibility, right? Finance. It is the responsibility.
Yeah, it's the responsibility. I love that you pick me up on language. I'm so used to being British and like underplaying everything, and you're just straight there. Thank you for that, John. I appreciate the confidence.
Love my British friends.
You announced a new initiative with support from Shopify. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what you guys are doing with Shopify?
Shopify is the truth and the light.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Toby, the founder, my friend Harley, the president, who's recently agreed to join one of our boards of directors here, the COO there, another Toby Y, we call him Toby Y and Toby I. Mm-hmm. That group I just love, and they stepped up, man. I was doing a podcast like this with Toby I, the founder, and at the end of the podcast last year, he's like, John, we got to do more than talk. Like, how do we make this real? How do we help? I said, I don't know, man. Look, you're a huge e-commerce company. Help me create 1 million new Black entrepreneurs. And he's like, send me something. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm used to this. You know, people say, I think they're just trying to get me off the phone or whatever. Like, yeah. So I sent him a note. And a week later, crickets, right, Simon? So I go, oh, well, he means well, but, you know, I probably overwhelmed him. Talking to me, he's like,
yeah, it came on a bit strong. You do that. It's fine.
Yeah, I didn't say 1,000 entrepreneurs or 500 or 3 entrepreneurs. I said 1 million, right? So I figured, you know, talking to me is like getting a glass of water out of a fire hydrant. So cut him a break. You know, he's a nice guy. And about 3 days after that, Simon, I get a note from Toby I, who says, oh, my God, so sorry. This went to my spam folder. Of course we want to do it. Count us in. You know, what do you want us to do? I said, can you do 10% of the million? He said, sure, done. And put me in touch with his people. And 3 months later, as a result of going back and forth with the Shopify people, they said, John, why do 100,000 when we can do 1 million? Let's just do all of them for you, because this is our business. Like, why would we not want every entrepreneur, every African American who can be or wants to be a business owner or an entrepreneur to come on our platform and to encourage that? And man, that inspired me so much. And so they made a commitment of $130 million over 10 years, the largest philanthropic commitment in Shopify's history, as I understand it. And they're the second largest e-commerce company in the country, as you know.
And they do so well by betting on new businesses, growth business, entrepreneurs, and businesses that have done that in finance and tech have done so well. Stripe's another one. Like, bet on that growth business, and it's a great place to be. And Shopify is such a good example of somebody that's taking financing and demystifying it by putting it right there when it solves the problem, and in a way that's contextual. So if I want to start a business, I can start a business. If I want to do marketing, I can do the marketing. If I want to accept payments, that's great. If I need a little bit of capital to get some more stock in, they got that too. It's not like a bank like, hey, would you like a loan? it's right there just when you need it. So do you think that there are going to be more folks that do what Shopify's done? And how do you think, how can a business that might be like Shopify or somebody in financial services do more during this pandemic?
I do believe you're going to see a huge uptick in the private sector leaning in. Last year, you saw $300 billion worth of commitments from the private sector to social justice initiatives following the murder of George Floyd. That's very encouraging. Not $300,000, not $3, not $3 million, $300 billion. And that's very much like in the middle of the civil rights movement, Simon, when the private sector rose up and took down the whites only signs. It wasn't local government or state government. They were the equivalent of our former president standing in the door saying, "Over my dead body will there be progress." The Bull Connors of that day. But it was the private sector that stood up and said, "Over my dead body, are you going to be an obstacle?" And yeah, some of it was not enlightened. It was selfish because blacks were the majority consumers in the South in the 60s, and the color of the currency was green. So these private sector leaders wanted the customers back. I don't care what the motivation was. They did the right thing, took the white warning signs down. Today, I think it's more of, hey, this is just indecent and ridiculous. And we have treated blacks inhumanely, and we've never made it right. After the Civil War, I'm gonna get to answer your question. After the Civil War, we did not do in America what Rwanda did after the genocide with the Gacaca courts, or what South Africa did after apartheid with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to hold people accountable and have a public airing of griefs and have people have responsibility. We just said at the Civil War, "Oh my God, everybody's exhausted. You Confederate soldiers, just take your guns and go home and do something meaningful." And they went home and decided to become sheriffs.
Yeah. What's crazy about that is you never get to heal as a community. You never get that opportunity to really come together. And it might be hard, but it's like that sports deep tissue massage, or it's like any kind of therapy. It's hard and it's work, but it's needed, and communities need it too.
Yeah, you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. So I do believe that you're going to see even more from the private sector. They've gotten a taste of leadership. They've got a taste of appreciation, to be blunt, of what their employees and what their customers are saying about companies with a purpose and a mission. Companies that have a mission, have a purpose, have a meaning, and are diverse and are inclusive are more prosperous companies than not. That is a fact. And I love math. To quote a friend of mine who's in charge of aerial management, is that math does not have an opinion. So it's a beautiful thing because it is objective. So the Shopify piece is, I think, not only helpful for the community, it's highly instructive for other corporate leaders. Melody Hobson, by the way, is the name of the lady from Ariel in that quote. I'm going to give her proper credit. So let me, if you don't mind, break down the Shopify deal. Is that okay?
Please do. Yeah. Take a couple minutes. That's awesome.
So I told you where it came from. Let me tell you how it works. So you're going to start hearing a huge drumbeat in 2021 of this 1MBB partnership. It's hope1mbb.org for those who want to go there. So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, if you know somebody who's African American with hustle and opportunity and potential, they'd go to the Operation Hope website. They download the Hope in Hand app. They register their intention to take their life back. I want to be a 1MBB candidate. We take them into the intake process. We allow them to join a coterie of small business owners or entrepreneurs. As you know, Simon, it's the same family, but those are actually two different paths.
100%. Yeah, yeah, they really are.
Itself, right?
Yeah, cats and dogs. They're both animals, but they're cats and dogs.
Right. Then you choose a path. We then get you started on your business plan. We have a virtual digital platform for that. You then start a 4 to 6 week training program for entrepreneurship, all sponsored, by the way. So there's no cost until this point. It's all paid for. You then graduate from that. You go into the 700 credit score communities program, our credit score increase program we talked about. There's no cost for that, Simon, because that's also sponsored. You graduate from that, you get a Shopify license, 4 months free on the platform that's sponsored.
Wow.
You then get a Shopify domain name. Sorry, you get a domain name and a website through Shopify. There's no cost for that. That's sponsored. You get a Shopify storefront, a Shopify.
Wow.
You get a website. No cost for that. That's all sponsored. You got to put the work in.
Yeah.
You get a payment system from Shopify, because we know they're best in class in that regard. You get a fulfillment system of support. You're going to get some technical assistance support. You got Shopify putting together their Black and brown employees. We're now going to get on the phone with these entrepreneurs to help people walk through this process. That's all free. You're going to, I think I mentioned fulfillment. You make your first sale as a business owner, and they're going to give you a credit line at Shopify against that sale. Not against your credit, not against your assets, but against the power of that sale. You make another sale, you get another increase in a credit line. And then we have professional organizations, accountants, lawyers, CPAs, business management firms, et cetera, who are going to line in behind this process to give 2 hours each of professional coaching and counseling in their respective areas to help to gird up these entrepreneurs in the making, to help to make them be successful. The bet there, Simon, is as these companies become successful in a couple of years, they're going to turn around and be able to hire the same companies that are donating time to them on upfront.
This is a well-known model, right? It's the cloud platforms do it with startups all the time, which is here's a $10,000 of free AWS credits or Azure credits or Google Cloud credits, and that plays to a certain type of entrepreneur who knows how to use that platform. But this is doing it with a different type of entrepreneur who's selling a different kind of product. And there's that. I really love the wraparound support, and Shopify is unique in that wraparound support. Everything from forming your LLC or your C Corp in Delaware to advertising the business. That's really powerful. And I think also the community side of it is really, really unique. So what are your hopes for it in the next couple of years? What do you think that 2021 looks like for it? The people on the program now and what happens next?
So we've had a couple of thousand people already join, actually 3,000 join the platform in the first 6 weeks of its launch, getting them through the process. We took a break over the Christmas holiday. And now we're going at it hot and heavy. We already have a few thousand businesses that were already created before this. Those were testimonials. We're going to start a huge ramp up of a media and communications program and campaign. And, you know, there's out of 30 million Black businesses in America, 2.9 million out of 30 million businesses in America, 2.9% of them are Black businesses. And of those Black businesses, Simon, 96% of those businesses don't have an employee.
Wow.
So that's why we missed out on PPP. That's why we're not creating job creation. That's why there's no wealth creation. I mean, it's everything. So you have self-employment projects, not real businesses. You've got independent employees, not real businesses. And we need to create not just business, not just busyness, but business. Back rooms, infrastructure, systems, and then give compounding a shot, which is adding employees, adding technology, adding systems, so that you build wealth in your sleep.
And I love how the sort of the capital or the credit that comes is related to the sales. So the more sales you get, the more of a capital line extension you get. Right. That creates more opportunity the more you do. And I love your other point as well, which is here's all of the tools, but you got to figure out what the opportunity is. You got to figure out what are you selling to who, why are they going to buy from you? There's still so much work for the entrepreneur to do. How do you think about, you know, what advice you give to that entrepreneur and kind of what the big lessons are as they're coming through that? Have you turned that into a program? Are the things that you find yourself saying a lot to those communities?
I mean, the message is what my T-shirt says: hustle over everything. Mm-hmm. You may not have financial capital. You may not have been taught financial literacy. You may not have had a family structure where there was a history of wealth creation or home ownership or small business ownership. You may not have had friends around you who are aspirational. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll probably be the 10th. But what you do have, and what everybody possesses, is a capacity for hustle. And if you hustle, you have compounding on hustle. And hustle over hustle means you can outrun failure, because failure is the lazy bastard. And you get up early, you stay up late, you hustle harder, and at some point you will outrun your disappointments.
Yeah.
And once you get a taste of success, no different than these CEOs I mentioned earlier, who are getting a taste of appreciation and what giving back means for their business brand, that should be part of their philanthropy, and giving back should not be a goody two-shoes thing to do. It should be part of their business plan, because you can do well and do good too, and do well by doing good. Likewise, these entrepreneurs are going to get a taste of what hustle does for them: legitimate hustle, legal hustle, where you don't have to hide, you don't have to hold your head in shame, because all a drug dealer is an illegal, unethical entrepreneur. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. These are illegitimate entrepreneurs with a crappy business plan that's not sustainable, but they're not dumb. They have brilliance. I keep reminding folks that NASCAR came out of moonshine running.
And people forget that you can take something that was an illegitimate skill and legitimize it, and take all of those key components that made somebody good at that thing and be good at this thing, and just change it. But the feeling changes when you're doing something that has that's the real flip. I love that story, and I love that that flip.
Yeah, and Simon, the real magic here is to create a community of doers who are resilient, who have an entrepreneurial mindset. This is the Black community, who are taught the 5 pillars of success. Those are embedded in their culture, in their life. And then we take our lives back, and we add in the midst of that, you get less crime, more hope, more 2-parent households, more legitimate voting, more voting, more legitimate stakeholders, more legitimate wealth creation, more legitimate job creation, more participation in the system, and you have more GDP for this country.
You get compounding. You get the positive compounding cycle, and it's been a negative compounding cycle for a while. We've moved away from sort of financing the economy to the financialization of the economy, where everything became about
like that.
It really was like, how do we get more out of the economy through the clever tricks of finance, rather than how do we use this as an enabler to it. I fundamentally believe that if you change money and the infrastructure of how it moves, you can change every possible outcome. But it is there to support those outcomes, because if you want to build a school, guess what? It takes money. But in order to do that, you got to change how it works. That is such I think a key message for anybody who's watching, who works in fintech. I know a lot of people who work in banks, and the day job is super sort of move this from here to here. And I think the story you're telling about what you can do by understanding the system and making it work for you is super compelling. I guess one of the things I wanted to leave us with, we just got a couple of minutes to finish up. It's been hard on all of us, the pandemic. People have been locked inside. They had less time indoors. There's a potential burgeoning mental health crisis. How do you keep going, and what is it that what are you sort of sharing with people to help them find that drive to have the hustle?
Well, this is where people confuse religion with spirituality. One of my friends is Deepak Chopra, and we talk, and Bishop T.D. Jakes, 2 people I highly admire, and Ambassador Young. We all have these spiritual conversations, not religious conversations. Conversations. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, Simon. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And energy matters. So is the glass half full or is it half empty? Depends who's looking at the glass.
Yeah.
Do you believe? Belief is spiritual. Everything that we value, Simon, is intangible, really. Love, charity, compassion, hope, well-being, engagement, vulnerability, sensitivity, connectivity, friendship, family, joy. But those are inherently spiritual values. But we obsess on the physical things. That's the fascinating thing. And you're looking for love in all the wrong places, and we wonder why we're unhappy, or worse, unjoyful. There are days where I'm not happy, Simon, but I'm never unjoyful. So joy comes from the inside out, and happiness is on the outside on. So if somebody tells you you're handsome today, you may be happy. They say you look miserable, you may be sad. But if you know what joy is, you'll never be unjoyful. You can be happy and unjoyful, happy and joyful, unhappy and joyful, but you'll never be unjoyful. So what drives me is the inner joy. That's why one of the 5 pillars of success in the book Up From Nothing is the difference between the number 3 pillar is self-esteem and confidence. Self-esteem is internal, confidence is external. We have a lot of people in banking, as an example, finance, watching your show, listening to your podcast, who have enormous confidence because they're competent.
Mm-hmm.
Different from self-esteem.
Yeah.
So I esteem myself. I love myself. I know that I'm God's child. I know I have a mission and a purpose in this world. If I have 1 minute, I want to leave your listeners, viewers, with some instructive hope for them.
Please do.
My mentor, Andrew Young, said that, and he was Dr. King's right arm in the civil rights movement. He was coming up as a young person in the ministry, and he was lost. He was in his 20s. And he was at a religious, spiritual camp, and he was lost and looking for his purpose. He went for a run. He ran really hard, ran really hard. He got to the top of the mountain, Simon. He was exhausted. He had to stop and catch his breath. He was exhausted. He looked around as he was catching his breath, and he noticed something, Simon. The birds had a purpose. Had a purpose. The grass had a purpose. The sky had a purpose. The clouds in the sky had a purpose. He said, my God, if you've given all these things a purpose, then you must have given me a purpose too. I just have to find what my purpose is and operationalize it. Everybody watching this has a purpose. Everybody has a chance to change the world. You're not a cog in a wheel. You're a potential entrepreneur, a potential hero, shero. You're a potential mentor, a family member, a parent, an instigator, supporter, inspirer, and inventor. It's an average person with an extraordinary determination that changes this world. How can you be the change agent that changes the world where you live, right where you stand?
That's an opportunity for everybody. Life is about choices, and you can choose to do these things, choose to find your purpose, choose to help somebody out. And I'm very glad that we had the opportunity, and I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to speak to you today, John. I always learn so much every time we speak to you. Our viewers and listeners give us incredible feedback every time. So thank you so much. Remind everybody, where can people find out more about Operation Hope and everything you guys do?
Yeah, if you want to become a partner or make a contribution or volunteer, go to operationhope.org. If you know somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur or small business owner, go to hope1mbb.org or operationhope.org. And if you just want to send up good vibes, including me in your prayers tonight.
I love it. We'll do all of that, I'm sure. That's all we have time for this week, but don't miss our other live show audience, which is called Newsroom, and it goes live on Tuesday at 3:30 in the UK, 10:30 on the East Coast. In Newsroom, we take a deep dive into the biggest news story every single week. Thank you, audience, so much. I hope you've enjoyed this nearly as much as I have. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Have a great week, everybody, and bye for now.